Jimmy Haslam didn't expect to be holding emergency meetings in October. But with Shedeur Sanders requesting a trade and Kevin Stefanski reeling from a humiliating locker room blow-up, the Browns' leadership is under siege. Multiple teams, the Broncos, Raiders, and Falcons, are already preparing offers, and the league is watching closely. Sanders' value isn't just in his arm or his stats. It's in what he represents.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
The modern NFL quarterback who won't tolerate mismanagement. And right now, Cleveland looks like it's lost all leverage. The fallout from this internal war is massive. Sanders' demand isn't just shaking the Browns. It's exposing how little control the organization really has. His public dissatisfaction, magnified by his media influence and family legacy, is forcing the franchise to confront its most uncomfortable truth. Its systems are broken. Trade talks are just one part of the story. The bigger issue is how the Browns got here, and what this crisis says about the team's ability to handle talent in the new NFL landscape. Kevin Stefanski didn't just lose control. He lost the locker room, the narrative, and potentially the future of the Cleveland Browns. What went down in that offensive meeting wasn't a simple team disagreement. It was the unraveling of a franchise in real time. When Shedeur Sanders walked into that room and laid down his ultimatum, trade me or deal with the fallout, he didn't stutter. He wasn't asking for attention. He wasn't playing politics. He was done. Done with the mismanagement. Done with the broken promises. Done with trying to make something work that clearly wasn't built with him in mind. And when Stefanski reacted by storming out in a fit of rage, that was the confirmation everyone needed. This organization is fractured. Let's be real. Shedeur's frustration didn't come out of nowhere. It built up over time. A slow burn fueled by coaching rigidity, poor communication, and a refusal to adapt. He came into Cleveland as one of the most anticipated rookie quarterbacks in recent memory. The expectations weren't just media hype. They were backed by talent, poise, and a track record that said, this guy can lead a franchise. But instead of being developed, he was boxed in. The coaching staff had a blueprint, and they weren't about to change it, not even for their supposed star. Shedeur's style didn't fit? Tough. Adjust or get in line. And that's where the trust started to erode. He was promised something different during recruitment. He expected the offense to be shaped around his strengths, not the other way around. But week after week, it became clear that the coaching staff wasn't willing to budge. And that's the key word here, trust. Once that's broken, you're not just dealing with a frustrated player. You're dealing with a full-blown crisis. And when it's your quarterback, the guy who's supposed to be the face of your franchise, that crisis can spread fast. So let's talk about that meeting. This was supposed to be just another offensive review. Routine. Quiet. Instead, it turned into a flashpoint that exposed every weak spot in the organization's foundation. Shedeur stood up, spoke his truth, and dropped the kind of statement that sends shockwaves. He doesn't trust the coaching staff. He doesn't believe in the direction of the team. And unless he's traded, things are going to get worse. He said it. In front of everyone. And how did Stefanski respond? Not with leadership. Not with patience. Not with any of the composure you'd expect from a head coach in a high-stakes situation. He lost it. He reacted violently, no physical altercation, but emotionally it was an outburst. He stormed out, left the meeting, left his staff, his players, and his quarterback behind. That's not just unprofessional. That's a full-on meltdown. And once that happens, it's hard to walk it back. Because when the head coach melts down in the middle of a player crisis, it sends a message. To the locker room, to the media, to the league. It says, we are not in control. It says, we don't have the leadership to manage our own players. And in today's NFL, where narratives move faster than game film, that message is fatal. The fallout was instant. Reports started leaking. Analysts pounced. Fans lit up social media with takes, arguments, frustration. And the divide was clear. Some blamed Shedeur, accusing him of being difficult or entitled. But just as many, if not more, pointed their fingers at the Browns, at Stefanski, at the front office, at a franchise with a long track record of dysfunction, now repeating the same patterns, again. Because this isn't new. The Browns have been here before. The only difference now is the stakes. Shedeur Sanders isn't just another young QB trying to figure it out. He came into the league with leverage, with a media presence, with a last name that carries weight. And when he speaks, people listen. And he is speaking loudly. His camp hasn't held back. The word betrayal has come up more than once. That's not light language. That's personal. It means something was promised explicitly and then not delivered. And when that happens in professional sports, it's not just bad optics. It's bad business. It tells other players, other agents, other organizations that your franchise doesn't follow through. And right now, the Browns are paying for that. Other teams have already started circling. The Denver Broncos, Las Vegas Raiders, and Atlanta Falcons are all monitoring the situation closely. They see what Shedeur brings. They know this kind of opportunity doesn't come around often. And most importantly, they know that if Shedeur is this unhappy, they might be able to step in and steal the future of Cleveland's franchise right out from under them. And what's the Browns' response? Emergency meetings, internal damage control, Jimmy Haslam and upper management trying to assess how bad the situation really is. But let's not sugarcoat it, it's bad. Trust within the building is broken. Stefanski's credibility is hanging by a thread. And unless someone steps up and takes real accountability, Shedeur is gone. This moment has pulled back the curtain on everything wrong with the Browns' organizational structure. There's no clear chain of command, no unified vision, and apparently no real communication between players and coaches. That's not just poor leadership. It's dangerous. Because in a league where player empowerment is rising every year, franchises like this get left behind. And this time, it might cost them everything. If Shedeur leaves, the Browns don't just lose a quarterback. They lose years of planning. They lose public trust. They lose the very thing they've been chasing since the last quarterback imploded: stability. And the most frustrating part? It was preventable. This all could have been avoided if the coaching staff had done the one thing that great organizations do: listen. That's it. Just listen. To your players. To your locker room. To your quarterback who is telling you something isn't working. Instead, they dug in, held their ground, treated innovation like rebellion. And now, the face of their franchise wants out. The worst part? This is going to follow them. Even if they trade Shedeur and get a decent return, the stain is there. Other players will remember this. Other agents will raise eyebrows. Free agents will think twice. Because if this is how Cleveland treats its quarterback, its rookie quarterback with massive upside, what does that say about the organization's culture? Not much. At least, not anything good. And that's why this story isn't going away. It's not just about what happened in that room. It's about what it revealed. The dysfunction, the miscommunication, the inability to adapt, the fear of change. It's all there, playing out in real time while the rest of the NFL watches. So what now? There are only two paths forward. 1. The Browns clean house. They part ways with Stefanski, bring in leadership that actually understands modern quarterback development, and do everything in their power to rebuild trust with Shedeur. Or 2. They let him go, start over, again, and accept that their inability to evolve cost them another chance at something great. That's the crossroads. And one way or another, it's going to define this franchise for years. What's your take? Is this a turning point or just another Browns disaster? Should Shedeur stay and demand change, or is it time to walk away and start fresh somewhere else? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you're still shaking your head at this total collapse. Share this with someone who follows the Browns' chaos year after year. And subscribe so you don't miss the next twist. Because based on how fast this story is unraveling, there's a lot more drama coming. The Cleveland Browns are unraveling in front of the entire NFL, and the face of their franchise is halfway out the door. Let's not downplay what just happened. Shedeur Sanders didn't just ask for a trade. He laid down a direct, personal ultimatum to the coaching staff, publicly, in a team meeting. That alone is nuclear. But the Real explosion came after Kevin Stefanski lost control of the room, and himself. Because this wasn't just a disagreement over strategy or a heated discussion during film review. This was a defining moment. Shedeur, reportedly calm but clear, said he felt betrayed. That promises were broken. That his trust in the coaching staff, particularly Stefanski, was gone. And that unless something changed immediately, he wanted out. Then Stefanski lost it. We're not talking about raised voices or side-eye. We're talking about a full-blown outburst, emotional, loud, dramatic. And he stormed out of the room. The head coach. In front of a team. In front of staff. In front of the quarterback, who was already on the edge of leaving. There's no way to spin that. You don't come back from that kind of fracture overnight. You don't just apologize in private and hope the media doesn't find out, because they already have. And the worst part? They're not even surprised. Because for anyone who's followed this franchise over the past decade, this moment feels familiar. How many times have we seen the Browns hype a new era, only to watch it implode before it even gets started? Quarterbacks come in, head coaches rotate, offensive schemes change like weather, and through it all, nothing sticks. But this time, the stakes are different. Because Shedeur Sanders wasn't supposed to be a stopgap. He was supposed to be the future. He came in with rare talent, media clout, a football IQ beyond his years, and a level of composure you just don't see from rookies. He was built for the modern NFL, on the field and off. And Cleveland had a chance to build around him, to take that raw potential and shape it into something special. Instead, they tried to shove him into a system that didn't fit. And let's not forget, this isn't just about football strategy. This is about trust, respect, communication. Sanders came to Cleveland under the impression that the organization was ready to evolve, that they wanted him not just as a player, but as a leader, that they were committed to his development, not trying to control him. Clearly, that wasn't the case. And now, the fallout is everywhere. You've got Shedeur's camp going silent, but not quiet. The word betrayed has already made its way into the media coverage. You don't float that word unless things are already broken behind the scenes. It means the internal trust is gone. The relationship between coach and quarterback is damaged. And not just bruised, shattered. Then you've got fans completely divided. One side is furious at Stefanski, saying he needs to go immediately. That if you have a generational QB talent in your building, and he's telling you he doesn't trust the leadership, you fix the leadership. The other side is blaming Shedeur, saying he's too sensitive, not tough enough, that this is just part of the rookie learning curve. But let's be real, this isn't about toughness. This is about knowing your worth. Shedeur didn't throw a tantrum. He gave the team time. He played through the dysfunction. He watched the staff ignore his feedback, mismanage his strengths, and keep pushing a rigid system that clearly didn't suit him. And when he finally spoke up, he was met with volatility from the top. That says it all. And now, other teams are lining up. Multiple reports say the Broncos, Raiders, and Falcons are preparing packages to go after Sanders if the Browns make him available. That alone tells you how valuable he still is. Despite the drama, despite the headlines, teams still see the star potential. They're not afraid of what happened in Cleveland. If anything, it confirms how badly the Browns mishandled this. Because if you're another GM watching this meltdown, you're not blaming the quarterback. You're wondering how Cleveland managed to fumble something this big, this fast. And the scary part for Browns fans? This situation might already be past the point of repair. Yes, Jimmy Haslam is holding emergency meetings. Yes, the front office is doing damage control. But unless there's a complete overhaul, unless they're willing to let go of Stefanski, publicly back Sanders, and prove they're ready to change the culture, it's hard to see a path forward where Shedeur stays. And even if he does stay, how do you rebuild trust after this? How do you get a locker room to buy back in when your franchise quarterback just stood up and called out your entire coaching philosophy in front of everyone? How do you tell your young roster to trust the system when the system just blew up? Because that's where the Browns are now. In crisis mode. Not just because they might lose a player, but because they've exposed their own dysfunction to the entire NFL. This situation has become a symbol of how the league is changing, and how some organizations are refusing to change with it. Shedeur represents everything about the new NFL. Empowered players, strong voices, social media savvy, and an unwillingness to be silenced when something isn't right. And Cleveland? Still operating like it's 2005. Control the message. Stick to the system. Push through the noise. But that approach doesn't work anymore. Players today are brands, leaders, influencers. They don't need to wait until year 4 to speak their mind. They don't have to earn the right to be taken seriously. And if they're treated like they don't matter, they walk. And the league is watching how franchises handle that shift. Which is why this is about more than Shedeur Sanders. It's about the future of player-coach relationships. It's about trust and flexibility. It's about whether teams are capable of adapting, or if they'll be left behind. And the Browns? They're standing on that line right now. Do they side with outdated hierarchy and defend a coach who just had a public meltdown? Or do they acknowledge the shift, make tough decisions, and commit to building something modern around a player who clearly still has the support of half the league? Whatever they choose, the clock is ticking. Because every day they delay, every moment they let this tension fester, the chances of salvaging the situation shrink. And if Shedeur is traded, the Browns don't just lose a quarterback, they lose the chance to prove they've learned anything from the last 2 decades of dysfunction. It's the same cycle again. Hype, hope, collapse, reset. At this point, the Cleveland Browns aren't just dealing with a quarterback crisis. They're dealing with an identity crisis. Because what happened between Shedeur Sanders and Kevin Stefanski didn't just fracture a relationship. It exposed the fault lines running through the entire organization. And now everyone's watching to see if this franchise does what it always does. Implode and start over. Or if, just this once, they finally break the cycle. But if we're being honest, it's not looking good. The moment Shedeur stood up in that meeting and delivered that ultimatum, trade me or this gets worse, the clock started ticking. And when Stefanski responded by blowing up and storming out, that clock sped up. This wasn't just a coach and a player disagreeing on a route concept. This was emotional, personal, and totally unprofessional from the top. And now the Browns are trying to manage a wildfire with a leaky hose. Let's talk about the message this sends. Shedeur didn't come to Cleveland asking for special treatment. He came expecting professionalism, structure, and a coaching staff that would value what he brings to the table. Instead, he got ignored, boxed in, and, when he voiced his concerns, met with hostility. That's not how modern teams operate. That's not how you manage a franchise quarterback. And let's stop pretending like Shedeur hasn't earned the right to speak up. He was drafted into chaos. The same system that promised him support is the one that's now trying to silence him when he calls it out. He didn't demand roster control. He didn't go behind the team's back. He said what needed to be said to their face in front of the room. That's leadership. That's accountability. And how did the coach respond? With a meltdown. That's not leadership. That's fear. And now, it's not just the quarterback who's questioning the direction of this team. It's the entire locker room. Because if Stefanski can't handle criticism from one of the most composed, mature rookies in the league, how can anyone trust that he can lead a team through adversity? This isn't just a Stefanski problem. It's cultural. It's systemic. It's about the Browns constantly valuing power over progress, tradition over evolution, control over communication. And Shedeur Sanders just lit the whole thing up. Now the media's circling. Social media is on fire. And NFL front offices across the league are treating this like an opportunity. Denver's watching. Vegas is interested. Atlanta's preparing offers. Because other teams see what Cleveland doesn't. That Shedeur is still one of the most promising young quarterbacks in the league. This drama hasn't scared them off. It's confirmed what they already suspected about the Browns. And that's the part that stings. The rest of the league sees the problem, and it's not the player. It's the organization. Let's talk long-term fallout. If Cleveland trades Shedeur, they're not just back at square one. They're several steps behind. They've now got a reputation for wasting talent, breaking promises, and pushing out the very players they're supposed to build around. That kind of reputation lingers. It affects future free agency, draft picks, locker room morale. Agents take note. Players talk. Once that perception is out there, it's hard to shake. And the fans? They're fed up. There's a reason the reaction to this story has been so intense. It's not just about Shedeur. It's about the pattern. The Browns have been here before. Over and over. Flashy rookie. Big expectations. Internal dysfunction. Meltdown. Rebuild. Rinse and repeat. But this time, they can't afford to just reset. Because Shedeur Sanders isn't just any rookie. He's a brand. He's media savvy. He has the attention of the league and the fans. If he walks, the narrative isn't rookie couldn't handle it. The narrative is the Browns failed again. And that story, that'll stick. Right now, Jimmy Haslam and the front office are in damage control mode. Emergency meetings, PR strategists, media silence. It's all happening behind the scenes. But it won't be enough. Not unless it leads to real change. Because no one's going to forget what happened in that meeting. No one's going to forget the meltdown, the trade demand, the coach walking out instead of stepping up. There are only two outcomes now. 1. The Browns fire Stefanski, restructure their offensive leadership, and really commit, to building around Shedeur the way they should have from day one. It's messy, it's public, but it's possible. 2. They dig in, refuse to change, and trade him. And in doing so, they admit to the world that their system is more important than their talent. That they'd rather be right than be successful. That they've learned nothing. Either way, the fallout will be massive. Even if they try to keep things quiet, this has already become one of the biggest player-coach clashes in recent NFL history. Not because of the shouting, not because of the trade demand, but because it represents something bigger, players pushing back against outdated leadership. And winning. Because let's be honest, Shedeur isn't losing here. If he stays, it'll be because the organization finally bent. If he leaves, he'll walk into another locker room that values him, that listens, that adapts, that sees what Cleveland failed to. And if that happens, if Shedeur goes to Atlanta or Denver or Vegas and flourishes, that's it. Cleveland becomes the cautionary tale. The franchise that had the guy and drove him away. There's no escaping that narrative. Not with a new draft pick. Not with a fresh slogan. Not with another rebuild. Because this wasn't about not having talent. This was about not knowing what to do with it. So where do the Browns go from here? If they want any shot at saving this, they need to act now. Not weeks from now. Not next offseason. Now. They need to show Shedeur, the locker room, and the fans that they're not just watching this thing spiral. That they're willing to make real changes. Hard changes. But let's be real. That takes humility. That takes leadership. And Cleveland hasn't exactly shown either in the last week. So we'll watch. We'll wait. And we'll see if the Browns can finally stop being the story for the wrong reasons. Because this isn't just about one player anymore. It's about whether this franchise is capable of growing up. Let us know what you think. Should the Browns back Shedeur and start over at the top? Or is the relationship too far gone? And if he's traded, which team should pull the trigger? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you've had enough of the Browns' never-ending cycle of chaos. Share this with someone who's followed Cleveland through every meltdown. And subscribe so you don't miss the next twist. Because let's be real, with the way this is going, there's always a next twist.